I just really appreciate you jumping onto this call interview with me.
No
Um,
problem. Yeah.
so the initiative that I have, I work with the studios, like any type of the fitness studio, and I'm helping them to grow.
Yep.
And COVID definitely was not the easiest time for the studios, and many are still struggling, especially over the US. They are just devastated with mandates and
Yeah.
changes and everything. So the
Yep.
initiative here, I'm just inviting people who've been successful in that space to kind of convey the message to other people and help them in that situation, just to see what can be done, how we can all improve, how we can get better off out of that situation. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Cool.
Awesome. Okay, let's get started. I'm very happy to have Todd Kuhn today with us on the interview. And Todd has been one of the industry veterans, been in the industry for over 20 years, and the amount of experience he carries, I think, is really, really huge. How are you
Very
today?
good. Very well, thank you.
Oh, that's great. So can we just start from, this talk today is just to help the studios to get better at, coming out of the COVID situation. But I'd like you to just give us a little bit of the background about yourself.
Yeah, for sure, no problem. So, my background is that obviously I've been in over 20 years now in the fitness industry, but I started actually after uni. I was going to be a marketing professional or something. That's basically what I wanted to be. Then saw an opportunity within the fitness space that was something a little bit different to the normal gym that was at that stage, like 1999, 2000, 2001. Through that period, Pilates started to get a little bit bigger, as did, yoga was already big, but becoming more mainstream. So myself and my ex-wife took an opportunity to start basically we used to call it a fitness studio. So it was studios within studios where we had a focus on Pilates, yoga, and other mixed fitness, which now is becoming even bigger and more mainstream. And then that's still around today, 20 years, but about 2013, I actually set up another business, Rebalance Pilates and Yoga, which was specifically Pilates and yoga based. And that was really probably in Australia, after myself and my wife went to the States and looked around at what was available and what was happening within the industry, and looking at boutique fitness and how the industry had changed from, your big box gyms where you might offer Les Mills programming or freestyling programming to being more specific. And then from there, we looked at really a couple of different models. So we were looking at, okay, do we go down the Pilates route, or do we go down more of a cardio, so like a spinning style,
Mhm.
soul cycle or whatever. And then we had an idea, or do we put the two together? In the end, we decided, like, my experience had always been working with women that are 30 to 60. And
Mhm.
I found that they're looking for something different. They're not looking necessarily for that high intensity style fitness. They're looking at
Mhm.
something that they want the benefits of health and wellness, but not with the high impact. So we decided on Pilates and yoga. And then since then we grew quite quickly. We did a lot of things different to what was happening. So I guess, in that period of the late 90s through to mid 2000s, or to 2010, 2015 even,
Mhm.
um, it was still very archaic the way that everything was being done. It was like the old school, you um, get people in for a trial, but through your flyers or through casual leasing in a Westfield or in a local shopping
Mhm.
centre, letterbox drops, whatever you needed to do, and that was really it. One of the things that I did that I'm like, looking back now, I go, okay, that was probably the best move that we did, is find a mentor. Find a mentor that was sort of a little bit further down the track than where I was, and look at ways in which mixing up the system. So
Mhm.
basically, that led us to launch using like Facebook marketing, and later Instagram. and realizing that, these methodologies are like direct, they work, they're lower cost most of the time if you can do it well. And then from there, we just kept opening studios at a pretty rapid pace, given also, again, he was a good mentor in the fact that, when we went really well with one, he was like, you've got an opportunity now to scale it out.
Yeah.
Which we did. And then we've been fortunate enough just recently, we're actually bought out by Viva Leisure, one of the largest Australian-based fitness or stock exchange listed companies in the fitness space. So I'm working with them now to keep building the brand.
Yep.
But things have changed in that time. Like prior to 2020, everything was kicking along really well. And then 2020 happened with lockdowns and whatnot. And I guess it was another opportunity when we were cruising along from 2013 to 2019.
Yep.
And then realizing that it's so critical to pivot and make those minor changes to do whatever you need to do to get through.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So that's where we're at today. 2020 and 21 have obviously been very tough for everyone in the fitness industry. But again, it's like these opportunities now to look at what we're doing and what can we do better, and is there other ways that we can go about doing business.
Yeah, absolutely. It changed so much, right? So we've got to pivot and accommodate and do everything. Well, that story is really interesting because I run an ad agency. We do Facebook ads and all that kind of stuff. Mostly I work with the US based companies. And that's what you're saying. I think I just wanted a little bit to stop on that point because it's really interesting. A lot of studio owners, and I've spoken with over hundreds for now.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of studio owners have that kind of mindset frame, which prevents them from trying things out, such as things like investing their money into advertising. So can you tell a little bit more about how did it start for you? When did you see that opportunity? And I know you already told that you've been working with a mentor and you tried it on one studio and it worked. So what was your offer? How did you find that it worked?
Well, I think the thing when we started Rebalance, what happened is I only knew what I knew. So the initial things that I knew was, okay, well, we'll do Groupon and we'll do Scoop-On and all of that. And so we flooded the studio in the first probably, I think it was 3 weeks that we were open before we actually kicked off with our mentor. And in that 3 weeks, we were getting an insane amount of people through the doors. But then after their 21 days or 28 days had expired, they were like, oh, I'll go to the next Scoop-On or the next Groupon or whatever. So he was very quick to realize, or to make us realize that people need to be paying firstly for a trial. And also the service that then goes behind that is where you actually get your clients and you get your clients to stick. I feel like that a lot of people, business is also business. And just because you're a great instructor doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be an amazing a studio owner. And I think that's a really important distinction for people to realize that, you've got to pick up your skills. So you might go into it thinking, oh yeah, I'm a good instructor, but my end goal is to actually be a business owner. And if that is the case, you need to be looking at these other ways of advertising, other ways of getting people in, and focus on that and how you're servicing them, how you can train your team to give great service rather than just being you as a great practitioner.
I totally agree
in
with
this
you.
space, I mean, in studio space, I do feel like it's one of those things that the experience sells the actual studio, or gets the memberships basically. But I still feel like, you can do an amazing session, but unless you're willing to unless you invest in setting up the process of how you're actually going to get acquisition of a lead to then become a long-term member, it doesn't matter how good your class is, you won't actually get that result. You won't get that conversion.
Yeah, I agree with you. There has to be like a journey step by step that makes those
100%.
people to realize, yeah,
Yeah.
and
But
get them into.
I think falsely that a lot of people that are in the industry overlay their own beliefs or their own values on the general population. So because we might go and our priority when we go on holidays or when we go to another, when we move houses is to find, where am I going to be exercising? And we'll go and join. Whereas a lot of people, that's just not their focus at all. Their focus is, everything else. And
Yeah.
then how do we, once we get them with a little bit of a hook, how do we then make that a habit for them to continue coming?
Yeah, absolutely. There should be like a bigger reason, and the whole industry has been like price wise. There was a
Oh,
lot of dumping pricing coming from the gym
totally.
side of things, and yoga and Pilates been devalued by many. Like when I started my studio, people were saying, "But why should I come and pay you? I can go to the gym. It's like
Exactly.
$12 a week." And
Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely hard to hear those things.
Yes, indeed.
But what do you think, like in terms of rebalance, where do you
Yep.
think the value is, why people are sticking in?
I think a lot of it, like, so I believe that, the instruction is, it's community, I think is actually where it's at. Like feeling a part of something, have an understanding that the instructor knows about you. And there's a feeling of like that homely feeling is
Mhm.
where I feel actually the difference is. And obviously depending on what market you're playing in, but for the market that we typically play in of the, 30 plus woman,
Mhm.
it is feeling like no judgment and
Mhm.
just getting in and creating that space for themselves. It's not about, not necessarily about being a size 8 or, having this amazing transformation. It's about how you feel. And if we can make people feel a part of something and feel good about themselves, then we're winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you that the ladies could fit in together in the community, and then they feel much safer to
Definitely.
to open up and they exercise and feeling of the community. Same thing I found, like when I was doing my yoga studio, I actually found that that was like some of those people would just stick for 10 years in a row. They would never need a change. They're not switchers comparing to the
Yep.
younger population that comes to the gym.
Totally. Yep.
That's a good target. And yeah, I can see how the part of your success strategy is by choosing the right target and providing the product that is actually in service, that is actually suitable
Yep.
for them. Oh,
100%.
that's awesome. And so Rebalance, then do you understand it correctly? It went, so you created some kind of a franchise option, or?
Yes. Yes, that's right. So we went originally from like 1 to 6 studios in just a couple of years. And then we looked at the franchise model, and we started that process, which is obviously now is going to be I always struggled with that side of things because I just wasn't sure how to manage that process and managing the day to day as well as being able to service and help other owners was a real struggle for us.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that the whole reason for that was making people. We actually started the way that we ran it was that we opened 4 locations with partners.
Mhm.
So we had basically half share with partners, which worked really well because in the boutique space, having that person that people do connect with and they feel like is the mother hen of the studio definitely leads to the success of the
Mhm.
studio. Whether that be, a really great manager, but, obviously having an owner there, they've got skin in the game and it means that they're really focused on how can we create this space for people where they want to keep coming back. Um, but then leverage wise of how we were when we got to the point where, because not everyone has the same ambition. So like where, we wanted to open multiple locations. Some people are happy just doing one, just earning that amount with a lifestyle, which is awesome. That's fine. But then to find people that are on the same page of where everyone wants to go from that perspective is challenging. So
Mhm.
that's when we sort of divert our attention to go, okay, there's a bigger scope here for what we offer through franchising. So then in the last couple of years, or 2018, 19, we sort of went down that path. 2019 started 2020. We went down that path, which is where now we're going to take it a little bit further and expand the brand through the franchising model.
That sounds awesome. And I know when you start scaling, like you're scaling all the mistakes along the way. So it just then
Totally.
you fix it at each of the locations, and yeah, it's a lot of work. And oh wow! And how many locations the Rebalance
So
Studios had?
we had 12 locations, and then we had 8 company-owned locations, and then 4 that were not. And then actually post the first lockdowns in Melbourne 2020, we actually closed one location because the lease was finished. It just didn't make a viable option to keep it open, especially being based in Brisbane, and that one being based in Melbourne was a bit of a challenge. So 11 in total. So we had 3 franchisees. Interestingly enough, as we've gone through the transitionary process of changing over, 2 of those franchisees have been with us for quite a bit of time, and they've learned a lot. So they've actually debranded. They've gone with their own brand, and one is coming across to Rebalance with Viva, which is exciting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great to hear. And so the COVID, like if you're talking about the COVID period, how do you see the change now? What has actually changed, and what's the new way of things?
Yeah. So that's super interesting in itself. So probably in about October 2019, my wife and I at that time, we were like looking at what is happening within the industry, what's changing, what's staying the same. And we spent some time developing a prototype of a home reformer. So basically people can do it at home. And then as it happened, March 2020, we'd actually ordered them in December of 2019, a load. And then March 2020 happened with the lockdown. So we actually saved the studios by actually renting out all of the equipment for the period that we were closed, which is like that saved us. But the other thing that we had was this opportunity to have these high quality at-home reformers that we basically sold through that period right through to today. So I am noticing with that there is a shift of energy to people still going, oh, look, the studio experience, I love it, but I'm fearful of Omicron, or I'm fearful that, so I want to do something at home. I actually believe that I still think it's going to do a full circle. I think I saw an article yesterday where they're saying that's happened, that brick and mortar gyms now have starting to really bounce back, because people want connection. Like, people don't want to be in their living room. Some people do, but people do want that connection, that they can actually go in and they can talk to their instructor, talk to their fellow classmates. And so I see it doing a full return and bigger. But I still think that, whilst everything's a little bit up and down, there is also that space for online options as well. That's where I see it anyway at the moment, from what I can tell.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm of the same opinion, because we mostly have success advertising anything in studio.
Yeah.
Everything that we did online, I'm not saying that it's completely not successful. It is, but first of all, the retention is bad. People are not prepared to pay for that kind of service. And then in the end of the day, like you say, they're missing on the community part of that, like coming to a specific place. For myself, I'm sick and tired, to be honest, because I've been doing this online for 2 years. Like, my whole business is online, which means that I'm staying inside the house all day long. I'm actually looking forward to going out somewhere, not staying more at home and doing something. So
definitely. And what I found, which is super interesting, because everyone says go online, look at your reach. There's this many billions of people. That means even if you capture 0.001% of that, you're fine. But from an advertising perspective, we found that our costs were just so high to try to get the online. Whereas if you've got a location and you can be geo and demographically specific on who you want to attract, your cost comes right down and you can actually focus on exactly who you want to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic. Um, well, what would you recommend studio owners? Probably one of my last questions. Like, what would you say to someone who is really like, I work with a lot of US guys, and you can imagine Melbourne, just transition there. They've been there. They're so fearful. They say, like, I'm putting my last things down. I don't know. It's like I'm in the end of the journey. What would you say to them?
I find this sort of circles back to what I was saying earlier, is that if you don't go all in, like if you don't have a plan B, you'll go all in on plan A, which is just get in and have a crack and trust the process. But what I have found is I've been part of different masterminds throughout the like US based ones, Australian based ones, the whole works. And I do find that people think it's just going to happen. And yes, you can generate leads for people, which I believe, you've got to be in the game of marketing, because if you're not in the game of marketing, people aren't just, they say build it and they will come. It's untrue. Unless you put in that work and you're willing to invest in marketing and then willing to have a process to actually follow to get those people to become from a lead to a sale, then you're never going to really be successful. And that is just a reality. So I think a lot of people think, all right, well, we're reopened now, everyone's just going to flock back to us. And it's like, unless you're out there doing this and saying, here I am, come and try, it's not going to happen. And people talk about, I get frustrated because so many people go, oh yeah, well, just go and do Instagram posts and organically you'll get people. It's like, unless you're paying, these platforms are built for you to pay to play. And you have to have that understanding that unless you've got a huge, and even if you do have a huge following, is that actually then being monetized? Really, the only way to monetize it is to pay to play.
Yeah.
That's what that would be my biggest piece of advice to people, is that you have to invest in your marketing and your systems to make sure that you're getting people come through your doors.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just one question I had. Well, let's say we are building the membership. So I always look at the membership like you're looking to retain someone for at least 12 months, like in my opinion, because I've been in the industry for maybe 14 years.
Yep.
I changed from the marketing occupation to yoga. And then at some stage I thought, well, why don't I combine those skills together?
Yeah.
And when I speak with people, quite often I find that like they don't have that understanding that retention is a big part of it. And if they are retaining someone for 12 months, then they can actually and should invest some of the money into their marketing. So where would your stance be with regards to that? Like what's the retention you're seeing and what would be your investment that you're looking to make?
Well, so I think that you're like, they describe it as like the leaking bucket. Like if you've got a whole heap of people coming in. So I always explain that to people when I talk about, Groupon or Scoopon, is that you used to be able to get a huge amount of people come through the top, but as they go through that client experience, they all come out at the bottom. So like, what ways can you plug that up to make sure that you are retaining at a great level? And then you need fewer people, but I truly, unless you're constantly marketing, you won't constantly grow, is my belief. And I think, I've seen so many people, colleagues that have been through programs with me where it's sporadic. So it's like 1 month and they'll get, let's say 20 new members, and they're like, okay, well, that's it. I don't have to do anything now for 3 months. Great if you've only got, if you're at capacity and you're holding on to them. But then the reality of it is, let's say, working on round numbers, if you've got 100 members and 10% attrition, then you're losing 10 people per month. So if you don't market for 3 months and 10% is good, our goal was always 5%, or is always 5%, which has been challenging through this period. But that's always the goal that we're striving towards. And then we can see, where are we at there? If that, using that again as an example, 5%, that means we're going to lose let's say 5 to 10 members per month. By the end of 3 months, you're losing 30 members. So if you haven't done anything, you've got negative growth. So if you're not focusing on, reinvesting whatever profits that you've got into your marketing campaign, it's the only way you can continually build.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, like when you say your attrition is at 5%, what have you done from in terms of the marketing perspective to retain people for longer?
No, not so much from the marketing. I suppose internal. So like what campaigns are we running internally? So always trying to have some sort of goal so that people, they're getting in, and it's like, what can we do this month to have people focused on, whether it's a move of the month or whether it's a client function or client something, like what touch points can you work through there to make sure that people are feeling part of that community, and also they're coming, because that's the biggest thing. If we can keep them coming, we're going to keep them, which I think, the COVID has, that's probably the biggest impact, is that not coming, and then, we're reopening, and then people come, and some people are slower to come back. And then it's like, how can we get them back? How can we make it like exciting for them to be back and stay back?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing all these things and strategies. I really appreciate it. It was my pleasure to meet you today and to have that conversation. I think it was very useful, and many studio owners in our community will appreciate your time today.
Excellent.
Thank you. Appreciate, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks, Todd.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Okay.